Cheese on toast is pretty simple, right? It's basically cheese on toasted bread. Well, not according to this recipe I found from the 1930s, where it's a much sought after dish at dinner parties. Hey there cheese historians, I'm Julia and welcome to Cheese History, a channel all about the origins, history and impact of cheese. I'm currently researching the history of cheddar cheese for an upcoming video. There is so much interesting history there and I can't wait to get that video finished and out to you all. But today's video is about a recipe that I found while researching the history of cheddar. A recipe for what appears to be some sort of cheese on toast from the 1930s. I couldn't pass up the chance to give this recipe a go, so let's get into it. The recipe comes from Cheddar Gorge, a book of English cheeses, which was first published in 1937, with the goal of breathing new life and interest into British cheeses. At the time, British cheese was not doing so well, with the market inundated with factory-made cheese from places like America, as well as plenty of cheese coming in from Europe. The book contains chapters on 10 British cheeses, and is illustrated by Ernest H. Shephard, most famous for illustrating the Winnie the Pooh stories. The chapter on cheddar is written by Horace Annesley Vachell, a well-known playwright and novelist. Vachell not only provides plenty of information about cheddar, he also gives a recipe for what the publisher describes as the ultimate cheese on toast. And it's this recipe that is the focus of this video. Cut half a pound of cheddar cheese into thin slices and put them in a stew pan. Add 3 tablespoons of milk and a gill, 1/4 pint of cream, the yolks of 3 eggs and the whites of 2. Season with pepper and salt. Whip it until it boils and it is done. Let your guests be handed squares of toast. Let the cheese be served in a dish. The guests will spread the hot cheese on the hot toast. The boiling cheese should be free from lumps, smooth as mayonnaise sauce, and about the same consistency. Vachell first published the recipe in 1933 in a book called This Was England, where he describes it as a dish of boiled cheese. Place in a saucepan half a pound of cheddar or Gloucester cheese sliced very thin. Add a gill of rich cream, 2 eggs and the yolk of a 3rd egg, with a dash of red pepper, salt and 1 mustard spoonful of mustard. Stir without stopping over a slow, clear fire until the whole is smooth and free from lumps. Serve piping hot with toast. Despite Vachell warning in This Was England that the directions for this recipe should be followed carefully, the eagle-eyed among you will have noticed differences between the 2 recipes, particularly in the ingredients that were used. The key difference is the addition of red pepper, or chili powder, and mustard in the 1933 version. Adding these spices could have a bit of an impact on the flavour of the dish, so I think it would be cool to see what both are like. So I'm going to make the 1937 version and then divide it in half and add the spices to one half to see what difference it makes. The recipe is pretty simple, and the key ingredient is cheddar cheese. Now I live in New Zealand, and while we have cheddar everywhere here, I wanted to see if I could get hold of English cheddar to keep things as close as possible to the recipe. Luckily I was able to find a company that sells West Country farmhouse cheddar, which is the only type of protected cheddar made in England, and I'll put a link to that down below for anyone who's interested. So for this recipe I'll need half a pound or 230 grams of cheddar cut into thin slices. This gets added to a saucepan along with half a cup or 120 ml of cream, 3 tablespoons or 45 ml of milk, 2 eggs and 1 extra egg yolk, and is seasoned with salt and pepper. While I'm stirring this boiled cheese dish as it cooks and thickens, I want to share with you the story Vachell gives us along with the 1937 version of the recipe about how this recipe was something of a closely guarded family secret. The recipe of this I published in my This Was England, and I seized the opportunity of setting down here that I received letters from all parts of the empire thanking me for printing it. This recipe was cherished by an aunt of mine. On one occasion, a great personage was dining with her, and she gave him this dish of cheese. He asked for the recipe. My aunt asked an important question. "Is this, sir, a royal command?" Her guest replied, "No, no, I ask as your guest." My aunt laughed. "I refuse," she said, "to give this recipe to guests, because I hope they will come again to eat it at my table." This particular guest assured her that he would come again, and he did. The recipe was given to me grudgingly on the condition that I did not publish it in my aunt's lifetime. But before I was at liberty to play the part of public benefactor, a lady of my acquaintance begged me to break my solemn pledge on the altar of friendship. When I refused, she coaxed me to come to her house to make this dish for her guests. The ingredients, plus a chafing dish, would be placed, so she assured me, behind a tall screen in the dining room. And here, secure from any peeping Tom, I could play the part of Regent of France, Philippe d'Orleans, who delighted to cook special plats for his guests. I promised to do this, but, familiar with the guiles and wiles of the fare, I bespoke not only the necessary ingredients, but 2 others. I found everything laid out. I made the dish, and it was acclaimed with enthusiasm as the best ever. A week later, I met this lady. She shook her fist at me. "You devil!" Her husband told me that 3 times had his wife essayed to make the dish, before she guessed that I had been taking gross liberties with her underpinning. I wish he also mentioned what the 2 additional ingredients he included were, because I wonder if they were red pepper and mustard. Is it just a coincidence that there are 2 additional ingredients in the earlier recipe, and he explicitly mentions that he previously published it at the start of the anecdote? Well, it's about time we found out. Now that the mixture is smooth and thick, I'm going to take half of it out and add a pinch of chili powder and 1/4 teaspoon of mustard. The 1933 recipe calls for 1 mustard spoonful of mustard, and I haven't really been able to figure out how much that is other than looking at pictures of antique mustard spoons and estimating, so this measurement is a bit of guesswork. And once that's all mixed through, it's time to give both a try. In both recipes, Vachell recommends serving it hot with toast, so that's what I'm going to do. Now it's time for the taste test. So I have 2 pieces of toast, one with each of the cheese mixtures on them. This one is the one without mustard and chili, and this is the one with mustard and chili. So I'm going to start with the one without the mustard and chili. That is really good. It's very, well, it tastes basically like cheddar. Really, really strong, really nice cheddar too. Nothing really competes with the cheddar for flavour. Basically you get cheddar flavour and sort of everything else is clearly there just to be sort of a vehicle for making this a spreadable sauce to kind of go on toast, as opposed to sort of trying to compete with the cheddar in any kind of way. Right, so now let's try the one which had the mustard and chili added to it, to see if that makes any difference to the overall kind of flavour, because, yeah, in the initial one there's no competition, nothing to compete with it. So let's give that one a go. I want to say there's very little difference between the 2. Maybe, perhaps it takes the edge off the chili just a little bit. Oh no, I meant to say the edge off the cheddar just a little bit, but the chili hit a little bit. There is definitely a little bit of a note of chili in there, even though I didn't put a great deal of chili in. But overall, the chili and mustard didn't really seem to make a huge difference to the overall kind of flavour, but I think it's mellowed the cheddar flavour just a little bit, whereas the one without mustard and chili is very much like a cheddar. It's a very cheddar flavour, whereas this one is a little bit milder. Sorry, I mean a little bit more, but whereas this one is a little bit more toned down compared to the other one. So basically both are really, really good, particularly if you like cheddar. So if you like cheddar and you want some way of, like, other than just putting cheddar on toast itself, if you want to make cheddar spreadable, this is totally an option. As I say, there's not a huge amount of difference between the 2 recipes, but that would kind of depend on how much mustard and chili you chose to put in, which would be kind of a matter of taste, I guess. Maybe you'll even wow your guests at some kind of dinner party and become famous for making cheese on toast. Thanks for watching, Cheese Storians. I'm off to eat as much of this cheese on toast as I can while it's still hot, so I'll see you next time.